Today we're talking about the differences between the various modeling units, from our videos. Recently, a beautiful lady asked me a question which pops up quite often, and the question is basically which modeling unit to get. And usually I'm trying to answer these questions in the comment section, but this question appears so often, I decided to make a video where I would like to share my point of view or my thinking process about these units. First of all, of course, if you have a certain budget and you don't want to spend more money, then maybe you are already limited in the choice. But I will now just focus on the technical and aspects, and also on the so to say artistic aspects, which you want to do, or the things which you want to do with these units. So first of all, you should think about the differences between the high-end units and the cheaper units. So let's say you have maybe the Valeton GP200 or the NUX MG-30 on the one hand, both units about maybe €300. And on the other hand, you have maybe the AxeFx or the Quad Cortex. And if you compare these expensive units with the cheaper units sound-wise, not that the cheaper units sound bad, but there are a couple of differences which I found to be always appear. And that is, first of all, the high-end units, they have more DSP or more CPU power. So as a result, usually you can get better effects which are very power consuming. And these are typically, you have better reverbs, better maybe choruses, all of these effects which need much CPU power. Also the real-time effects like pitch shifting, where you would like to transform the notes in real time without any kind of latency. These cheaper units, usually they don't offer very high quality, these effects. That doesn't mean that the reverb in the GP200 is not usable. It's for me, for live usage, it would be more than enough. But if you compare it directly to the maybe the reverb in the Quad Cortex or in the AxeFx, you will hear a difference, especially on studio monitors. Another thing is the amp quality and the cap modeling, and that is also something which is hard to explain. The higher end units, they have first of all, the amps, they are more dynamically reacting to your playing. That is something which you feel. So if you pick a little bit harder, then the AxeFx behaves more like a real tube amp, feels more like a tube amp than maybe the Valeton GP200, which is more compressed, so it doesn't react that dynamically. And that is not a big difference in the sound, but it may affect your playing if you're a very dynamic player. And for me personally, I'm very focused on how hard I pick. I pick really soft in most cases, but sometimes I would like the note to stick out, and I put it harder. So when I'm playing the Valeton at home, I immediately feel that it's a little bit stiff, or so to say. So it's not that dynamically reacting. And for pure cleans, that is not so important, because usually I don't want dynamics then. I'm compressing these anyways. And also for high gain, it's not that important, but everything in between crunch and edge of breakup tones, they're somehow more realistic in the higher end units, in my opinion. And also, there's a noticeable difference in the highs or in the presence frequencies. I don't know why that is, but somehow the highs are more pleasant to the ears in the higher end units than in the cheaper units. The cheaper units, they can get harsh or scratchy as in the high-end units. Somehow, to me, it seems like there's a better resolution, which might be the case. Yeah. So the highs are more pleasant, like with a tube amp. So these are the biggest differences sound-wise, in my opinion. So you have more dynamic amps, you have better effects, especially these power-consuming like reverbs and the modulation effects. Pitch shifting is something which usually the cheaper units they either don't offer or just in questionable quality. But let me open the Fractal Audio FMI editor for you to explain the other things. So we have the editor hopefully here. And the next thing which you should consider is how flexible the unit is. And that is especially important if you want to use the unit in a live situation. And what I'm usually using when I'm playing live is I'm using scenes. So you can see here I have my S-long effects chain. Here is everything which is placed before the amp. Here's everything, here's the amp in the cab, and here's everything after the amp. And as you can see, there are lots of effects are deactivated now. Currently I'm in a lead scene 3, the longer delay. Here I have my rhythm scene. As you can see, the delay turns off there. And of course there are other scenes. For example, here I have a clean scene. Usually for split neck humbucker. By the way, this is my new Harley Benton Fusion guitar. Kick-ass, B-stock. Check out my videos about these guitars. I love them and they love me. Yeah, so I'm using scenes, and the reason for that is when I'm playing live, usually I have one preset for each song, and usually within one song I need different sounds. And everything which is time-based is in the right tempo here in the preset, so that I don't have to tap in a tempo or something. And of course there are different settings for the effects in each song. For example, an 80-ish song like Purple Rain needs maybe another chorus than maybe a Nirvana song or something. And so I would like to have scenes, because scenes offer me this feature that I can make different snapshots of the effects chain. And to be honest, this feature with scenes, that is something which are most of the cheaper units, they don't have it. The only thing of the cheaper units, the only one which I can think of now which has it is the NUX MG-30. There we have 3 scenes, which is not that much. And unfortunately you don't have this S-long effects chain in the scene. So you have basically only, I think, 1 or 2 effects blocks there in the NUX, and 1 drive block, 1 amp block, 1 cab block. So that you can assign scenes, but you can, for example, not use different amps in different scenes. So that's a little bit of a bummer there. But at least it has scenes. So the big benefit of the Fractal and also of the Quad Cortex is that you can also assign different channels to different scenes. So here you have 4 channels in this amp block where you can use totally different amps, as you can see here. And in each scene you can use one of these 4 amps. And also, if that is not enough, you can also use another amp block with totally different amps. And yeah, so that is very nice. And you have this scene feature, this very comfortable scene feature only in the AxeFx or the FM9 in this case, the Quad Cortex, I think. Yes. And to a certain degree, the Headrush has it. And yeah, but the Headrush is more complicated to program the scenes because it doesn't have a PC editor, which brings me to the next point, the usability of these units. If you want to use a complex unit like the FM9, for me the availability of a desktop editor is a must-have. So I wouldn't do this with just the knobs on the Fractal Audio things. And also I don't do this on the Quad Cortex with the nice touch screen. You can access things easier on the Quad Cortex than on the AxeFx, but nevertheless, if you want to dial in a complex preset like this one with 8 scenes and different settings in each scene, believe me, you don't want to do this on the touchscreen of the Quad Cortex. Once I tried it and I gave up, so I waited until the desktop editor was available. And desktop editors are available for the AxeFx, or most of these units, except for, I think, the Headrush. And yeah, the other ones which I own, they have it, the Valeton, the NUX, the Ampero, the Mooer Ge200, Mooer GE300, the Kemper has it, the Fractal Audio products, of course, the Boss GT1000 has it, yeah, only the Headrush doesn't have it. So, don't know why, but it's not good. So Headrush, please, yeah, provide us with a desktop editor if you hear this. So yeah, you have sound-wise these differences. Then you have the scene feature, which is very important if you want to have the flexibility which I need in a live situation. If you don't need this, these kind of complex presets in a live situation, maybe you're a guy which wants to use maybe 3 or 4 sounds and then turn on different stomp boxes maybe by yourself. For that feature, most of the units, they offer something which is called the control feature, so that you can assign control functions to the foot switches that controller is maybe enabling different blocks or disabling. And that is something which is also very helpful. And as I said, most of the units have it, especially the Valeton and the Mooer GE300. They have it in a very very useful way, if that is a word. Of course, the NUX MG-30 and the Harley Benton DNA FxGit Pro, the Ampero, you can assign control functions to maybe 1 or 2 buttons, but that is maybe not enough for some people. So if you want more flexibility, I'd recommend the Mooer GE300 or the Valeton, because there you have the ability to assign controls flexible to each of these buttons, and they have a lot. For example, the Valeton has 8 buttons and the Mooer GE300 has maybe 10. And you can use each of these buttons as a control function and assign or turn on different blocks with one controller. So yeah, if you need a little bit more flexibility, but not the maximum flexibility like in these high-end units, maybe the Valeton or the Mooer GE300 would be the way to go, in my opinion. And yeah, the difference between these controllers and the scenes is also very important to know. A controller, it's basically changing the state of a block. So if you're in a preset where maybe the phaser is disengaged and you assign the phaser to the control button, and then it will turn on the phaser. But if you are in a preset where a phaser is already engaged, then it will turn off the phaser. And sometimes you can assign the phaser to two different buttons for two different settings, and then it's maybe confusing because if you hit the one button with a one setting which is maybe engaging the phaser and the delay, it's engaged, and in another controller you're just disengaging the phaser, then you have always to think about the order in which you push which controller. That is very annoying in a live situation. So yeah, if you want to control more than one blocks with one controller, I'd rather strongly recommend a unit with the scenes feature. Otherwise, it can get very confusing. So yeah, flexibility. Of course, the overall assignability of the foot switches is a point which you should consider. So how flexible can you assign functions to these foot switches? There I have to say, from the cheaper units, the Valeton and also the Mooer GE300, which is maybe twice the price of the Valeton, by the way. Yeah, they are the units in these cheaper or medium price range which I would recommend, which have the highest flexibility when assigning functions to the foot switches. Of course, I don't own any of these units. For example, I don't own the Helix, so I cannot say anything about that, but I'm quite sure that it's almost as flexible as maybe here the X or the Quad Cortex, that it brings some kind of scenes feature, but I don't know. And also the Boss GT1000 is, you have this flexible assignability. It doesn't have a scene feature, but it has this yeah, flexible control feature. The only thing with the Boss GT1000 is it's very limited regarding the amp models, I think. It doesn't have that much amp models. It has the ones which are there, they're great, and but it's compared to other units, it's yeah, it's quite few. And that brings me to the next point. It's the yeah, the flexibility, the overall flexibility, as I would call it. So usually the high-end units, they offer more amp models and cap models and more effects than the cheaper ones. And also they, due to the fact that they have more CPU, you can have more effects in your effects chain. So if you're a guy who's using only one effect at a time, maybe on one modulation effect in one preset, one delay in a preset, or yeah, one stump box, then you're fine with all of these units. Even the cheap ones, they offer this usually. But if you start using maybe more than one effect, for example, you want to have a chorus and also an enhancer, like me here, and maybe different delays, maybe a time-based delay and maybe a complex delay for cleans, for shimmering tone, then yeah, you should go for a more expensive unit, because the cheaper units, they don't offer this feature. For example, the Valeton or the Hotone Ampero, you can only place maybe 2 effects in one chain. And that is also including maybe the gate or the compression or the drive block. So if, in a few words, if you don't need many effects, then you can go with the cheaper units. But if you need more effects, if you like more complex presets, yeah, then you have to pay a little bit more, I think. And yeah, the last point which I'd like to mention is maybe the overall usability of these units. As I said, I I strongly recommend a unit where you have a desktop editor. But also the editors, they are quite different, and for me this editor here is almost perfect. It doesn't look that fancy. You don't see amps, pictures of your amps, but I don't need that. And here I know everything, where everything is located. So yeah, some people may not like these Fractal audio units, but as I'm using these a long time and they're working, don't cause any problems, yeah, for me they are perfect. But I have to say, also the new editor for the Quad Cortex, the Kemper editor, the editors for the Valeton or the Hotone Ampero, they're all decent. A little bit of a bummer is the editors of the Boss units, in my opinion. They look terrible, and also they are very difficult to use. So yeah, I can't recommend these Boss units as a good example for the best user experience. But yeah, from the cheaper units, the NUX has a very nice monitor where you have nice images of a studio room, and also the Hotone Ampero has a nice editor. The Valeton editor is okay, Valeton GP200. The Mooers have a very cheap looking editor. Looks like maybe Windows 98 or something. But they're working. So yeah, but I would say as far as the overall usability of the editors, maybe the DNA FxGit by Harley Benton, the Mooer products and also the Boss products, they're not that nice. The other products have more or less nice editors, except of course the Headrush, which still doesn't have any. Another unit which I recently saw which come out is, I think, the Ampero Stage or something, which has also the scenes feature. So I still have to try that out, but it sounds very promising, and I hope it's not that expensive. So yeah. For me personally, many of you will know, I'm using the Mooer GE300 Live. It's not the most flexible unit, but the reason for that is it's working. It sounds great. It has enough CPU power for a long effects chain. Unfortunately, no scenes feature. But yeah, as I'm using only maybe 2 or 3 different settings with them on preset for most songs, I can still I can play with it, and yeah, I programmed it, so it's working. So what else? Yeah, these are, I think, the main things you should think about when deciding which unit to get. Now, how important is the sound quality to me? Of course, you can get better sounds with the higher end units, more dynamic sounds, but is that very important for you? In a live situation, it's maybe not that important because nobody will notice, and you will also not feel it when playing. For a studio situation, maybe it's more important. How flexible is the unit? If you use it live, maybe you need scenes or many foot switches, and yeah, the free routing options or the assignability of the foot switches, then maybe the Valeton or the Mooer GE300 would be something for you. And yeah, another thing, of course, there are other smaller things. Which one thing which I was thinking of recently is the power supply of the units. So usually most of these units, they come with this external power supply, 9 volt or something, or 12 volt, which you can get in a usual convenience store, or also of course in Thomann. And that is okay. You have to be a little bit careful. Maybe you have to bring 2 in a live situation, but as you can get these things everywhere, yeah, that should not be a problem. Of course, the usual internal power supply with just this, I don't know, standard cable would be the best. But currently only the, what does it have? The Kemper rack unit, which I have, the Fractal audio products, and the Headrush. And what is very annoying is the power supply of the quad cortex, because it's, I think it's 18 volt and very high ampere. So it's basically something which you don't get anywhere. And if you buy the original power supply, well, it costs maybe $35 in Thomann. And as I heard, they're not that reliable. It's what I heard from some people which had problems with these power supplies. And of course, if your power supply dies in a live situation, it's, yeah, you cannot do anything. So maybe you should think about these things too. Also, maybe if you would like to record, if it has a USB interface, but if I think about it, the Kemper didn't have it, but nowadays they added it, the feature, I think, especially, except that the drivers are still not available, but they will come, I think. The other units you can record direct with each of these units. I think the Valeton GP200 can record only 44 kilohertz and 16 bits, I don't know. But it's for me, it's also working. And yeah, of course, there are other things like loopers and intelligent harmonization and fancy things like auto-tune for vocals and something. But then you have usually, you don't have the choice of so many units, because, for example, the auto-tune function for vocals, only the, I think only the Headrush has it. And mic preamp is in the quad cortex, but on the other units, I think even the Fractal units, they don't have it. So yeah, that is another difference. And last but not least, one very important thing for me is the amp cloning function. So if you want to clone your setup, or yeah, have more flexibility, so you want to create your own amps, then you need a unit which can do this. And currently the units which can do this are, I think, at least the ones I have, the Headrush, Fractal Audio AxeFx, the Kemper, and also the Quad Cortex by NeuralDSP. But I got the best results, I think, using the Headrush and also the AxeFx. And keep in mind, the cheaper Fractal audio products, cheaper, which doesn't mean that they're cheap, but the FM9, the FM3, they don't have the amp cloning function. So only the AxeFx III and AxeFx II, they have this. It's called tone matching. It's not amp cloning, but at least you can make a EQ matching, which brings you also very close to the desired result. At least it was working pretty well when I did it. Yeah, otherwise the Kemper, Quad Cortex, or the Headrush. The Mooer GE300 has this function too, but to be honest, I didn't get very good results with this. Yeah, maybe other people had more success. So if that is important for you, maybe you should check out these units. A lot of things, I hope it will help you in some way. So yeah, please leave your comments below, subscribe to my channel. See ya.